You know those squiggly lines you see on medical shows? Ever wonder how doctors can look at that and know exactly what's going on with someone's heart? Well, today, we're diving into the electrocardiogram, or ECG, and we're going to decode that very story together. So, here's the game plan. We'll start with how we even get this electrical picture in the first place. Then, we'll zoom in on a single heartbeat, break it down into its core parts. After that, we'll learn how to measure its speed and rhythm. And finally, we'll get into the really interesting stuff, what happens when that signal gets messed up. Sound good? Let's go. All right, first things first, let's get our heads around what an ECG actually is. It sounds kind of impossible, doesn't it? I mean, the heart is powered by this amazing, perfectly timed electrical current, but you can't see it. So how in the world do we make that invisible force visible? Well, the answer is a 12-lead ECG. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a photo shoot for the heart. We place these electrodes all over the body, and they act like 12 different cameras, all snapping a picture at the same time. Each camera angle gives us a totally unique view, and when you put them all together, you get this incredible 3D picture of the heart's electrical activity. So this is the key takeaway. An ECG isn't a picture of the heart muscle itself, it's a graph. It's a direct printout of the electricity flowing through the heart, plotted over time. It's literally the energy that makes it beat. Okay, so now that we know what we're looking at, let's learn the basic alphabet. Because every single heartbeat creates this signature pattern that we can break down into simple parts. And this is it. This is the whole thing right here. The PQRST sequence, this little pattern, is the fundamental building block of every ECG. It tells the complete story of one single beat, from the top chambers squeezing to the bottom chambers doing the heavy lifting, and then everything resetting for the next round. Let's break it down piece by piece. It all starts with the P wave. See that first little bump? That's the electrical signal telling the atria, the heart's two top chambers, to contract. You can think of it as the quiet whisper that kicks the whole process off. A healthy P wave is super quick. It should be over in less than 0.12 seconds. So right after that whisper comes the shout, the QRS complex. This big spike right here, that's the main event. This is the powerful electrical surge that makes the ventricles, the big lower chambers, contract and pump blood out to your entire body. And just like the P wave, this whole powerful event happens in a flash, also in under 0.12 seconds. And to wrap up the cycle, we have the T wave. After that massive contraction of the QRS, the ventricles have to electrically reset. They have to recover. That's exactly what the T wave shows us. It's the moment the ventricles relax and recharge, getting ready for the very next beat. Okay, so we've got our alphabet, P, Q, R, S, and T. Now let's put them together and actually read something. We're going to learn how to measure the heart's rate and rhythm. Now, there is an absolutely brilliant and simple trick for this. It's called the 300 method. It's so easy. First, you find an R wave, that's the very peak of the big QRS spike that lands right on a thick grid line. Then, you just count the number of big squares until the next R wave. And here's the magic. You just divide 300 by that number. That's it. That's the heart rate. And check this out. This slide basically does the math for you. If the R waves are one big square apart, boom, heart rate is 300. If they're two squares apart, it's 150. Three squares, 100, and so on. It is such a fantastic shortcut for estimating the rate at a glance. Now, a normal resting heart rate is somewhere between 60 and 100. So we're usually looking for a gap of about 3 to 5 big squares. So now we can measure the rate. But what happens when the signal gets messy? Sometimes that electrical impulse doesn't travel smoothly. It gets delayed or even blocked. Think of them like typos in the heart signal, and the ECG is the perfect spell checker to find them. Let's look at two really important types of these blocks. First, you've got Mobitz type 1. Here, the signal gets slower and slower and slower until, poof, a beat just gets dropped completely. It's a predictable pattern. Longer, 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 drop. But then you have Mobitz type 2. Here, the signal speed is totally consistent until it just suddenly fails, out of nowhere. No warning at all. And that, as you can imagine, makes it much more dangerous. And this image just shows the difference perfectly. Look on the left. You can literally see that gap between the P wave and the QRS getting wider and wider right before the beat drops. Now look at the right. The gap is the same, and then, all of a sudden, there's a P wave all by itself with no QRS to follow.
It's a striking difference when you see them side by side.
Now, blocks can also happen inside the ventricles themselves. If the signal gets delayed on the right side, there's a fantastic mnemonic to help you spot it: MARO. So here's how it works. The M in MARO reminds you to look for a telltale M shape in lead V1, and the W? That reminds you to look for a W shape in lead V6. Can you see it on the slide? It's like a secret code. Once you know what you're looking for, it just pops right out at you. Okay, so what about a block on the left side? Well, of course, there's a mnemonic for that too: William. And you can probably guess where this is going. For a left bundle branch block, the whole pattern just flips. The W in William tells you to look for a W shape in lead V1, and the M points you to an M shape in lead V6. Seriously, these two mnemonics, MARO and William, are just incredibly powerful tools for telling these two conditions apart quickly. All right, for our last section, let's look at some of the most common irregular stories the heart can tell. These are the arrhythmias. Oh, this is a classic: atrial flutter. What's happening here is the electrical signal in the atria gets stuck in this super fast loop, and it creates this unmistakable sawtooth pattern. The heart rate is fast, but it's regular. And honestly, it's one of the most visually distinct patterns you will ever see on an ECG. And now for the big one. This is the single most common arrhythmia out there: atrial fibrillation, or AFib. Instead of one smooth signal, you have all these chaotic electrical impulses firing off from the atria. This leads to two dead giveaways on the ECG. First, there are no clear P waves. And second, the QRS rhythm is what we call irregularly irregular. There is absolutely no pattern to it at all. It's pure chaos. And doctors even have a mnemonic, pirates, to remember all the things that can cause it. So you see, from a tiny little P wave to a chaotic arrhythmia, every single part of an ECG tells a piece of the heart's electrical story. And we've really only just scratched the surface today. Which makes you wonder, right? What other secrets are hidden in those lines, just waiting to be read?